I got permission from Jesus and Marcia to leave my jacket off today. So. Now I've got a fan, thanks to Jermaine, blowing on me. For all my younger years, I preached without notes. But now that I've gotten old, I sort of moved to having written things out because the memory is not what it used to be. Now, if the fan blows my sermon away, we'll see how good my memory is. Also, I'm planning to visit Cheryl Campbell today. And I was wondering if any of you, most of you know Cheryl? Would any of you like to write her a note? And I could take it with me when I visit. I've got some notes here. Note cards. Anybody like to write her a note just to say hello? I was thinking that, what do we say in Massachusetts? Pibbity? I'd say, I'm from West Virginia, so I say Peabody, but Pibbity, I think. I thought it was further away than it is, but it's only 18 minutes from here. So I'm looking forward to meeting Cheryl. I think I met her before when I was here some years ago, but I'm looking forward to visiting with her today, and I'd love to read some notes from you for her. She told me to call when I got to her place because she has a dog who does not like men. So I'll be careful. Thank you. Just a couple of notes before I read. This is my translation of the second statement of what we call the Ten Commandments. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 5 if you want to read it sometime. The first one is in Exodus 20. So there are two different statements. But a couple of notes because I am reading. You'll notice that the word Lord is used throughout the Old Testament. And that's in Hebrew, Adonai. And Adonai means, in English, is usually translated as Lord. That was a substitute for the name of God. The name of God is not Adonai, and the name of God is not Lord in English. The name of God, Yahweh, means I will be there. That's what it means. It's a verb that becomes a proper noun, the name of God. And it's I will be there. So when you're reading the Bible, remember that. Think about that. Because it's everywhere. And you can tell where it is in the Old Testament. Because it's Lord all in capital letters. That's the name of God. Like the Lord is my shepherd. And it really should be, I will be there is my shepherd. And so that's the way I'll read it today. And I'll also read the name Egypt as misery, because that's how the Hebrew people saw the name. When they read the name Egypt, that we call Egypt, they called it misery because of their experience there, of course. Now you have the text before you, so you can compare, if you like, my translation with the text. God speaks. I am, I will be there, your God, who brought you out of misery, out of the place of slavery. Now it is possible for you to have no other gods before me. Now it is possible for you not to make yourself an image in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below, and bow down and worship it. For I will be there, your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments, my teachings. Now it is possible for you not to abuse the name of I will be there, your God. For I will be there will not hold anyone guiltless who abuses the name. Observe the rest day by keeping it holy, as I will be there, your God has taught you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is rest to I will be there, your God. On the seventh day, it becomes possible for you not to do any work, neither you nor your wife, nor your son or daughter, nor your male and female servant, nor your ox, your donkey, or any of your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns, so that your male and female servants may rest as you do. Remember that you were servants in misery, and I will be there, your God, brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, I will be there, your God, has taught you to observe the rest day. Honor your father and your mother, as I will be there, your God has taught you, so that you may live long and that it may go well with you in the land I will be there, your God is giving you. Now it is possible for you not to murder. Now it is possible for you not to commit unfaithfulness. Now it is possible for you not to steal. Now it is possible for you not to give false witness against your neighbor. Now it is possible for you not to covet your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's house or land, male or female servant, ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. I'd like to remind you that I like to hear from you. If you have questions or comments, please contact me. You have my email address and my phone number. Please feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk with you or to hear from you. Most of the Hebrew Bible is poetry. The two passages, the one in Exodus and the one in Deuteronomy, which we know as the Ten Commandments, these two passages are poetry. If I were to give a title to these two passages, it would be The Possibility of Freedom. That's what they're about. You wouldn't know it by what is mostly said about the passages, but that's what they're about. The possibility of freedom for human beings. The poem in Deuteronomy that I read is not law. It is not commandments. It offers us the possibility of freedom. That freedom is possible because God is present. Stop a minute and think. God, the living God, who created the heavens and the earth, the living God who came into the world in Jesus, the living God is present with you right now. So, this freedom that this passage is talking about is possible to you because God is present. When you trust God, whose name is I will be there, the possibility of freedom opens for you. The possibility of having no other God but the God of freedom, who is not on Mount Olympus or in some holy of holies or in heaven or in the church only, but the God who is above you and below you and around you and in you, who is indeed with all flesh, the living God who is with all flesh, though not all flesh trust God who is present. The calling of the church is to live out this covenant poem, and thus to be light to the nations of God's presence and help. That's our calling. That was the call of the Hebrew people when this was first given. And it's the calling of this church to be a light of God's way, of freedom, of love to the nations. That's why we're here today. In Jeremiah, God renews this covenant poem as something not on tablets or on posters in libraries and cafeterias and classrooms, but God renews this covenant poem as something in us in us because God is in us and with us. Remember that. Jesus lives this covenant. If you read the story of Jesus and you know about Jesus, what you know is that he lived this covenant that I just read. He lived it all the way to the cross. The present God makes it possible for you to worship only God who is present but unseen. Not the gods made up to dominate you, but the God who is with you in love. God who is present but unseen does not dominate or oppress you, but loves you. The present God warns you that worshiping these false gods establishes domination and oppression among you. But trusting the God who is present and unseen establishes love for thousands of generations. It is shameful how the name of God has been abused. Early on, men replaced the name of God, I will be there, with Adonai, which English translators have called Lord. Lord is a masculine word of domination, whereas the name of God, Yahweh, means I will be there, not to dominate you. I will be there to help you. And the Hebrew word Yahweh, which is a verb which becomes a proper noun, has a feminine ending. That's interesting, is it not? This does not mean that God is female. And it does not mean that God is male. But both femininity and masculinity come from the very essence of God. All the women here come from the very essence of God. And all the men here and boy come from the very essence of God. You're all from God. Oh, I should say, we're all from God. And I would add to that all the varieties of human life, come from the very essence of God. We might first think of the qualities classically associated with the feminine: gentleness, forgiveness, patience, and love, and hope that men will claim those qualities as well as women. But they're associated with women, and I believe that's why the name of God ends with a feminine, as a feminine proper noun, because those are the highest qualities of God. The words about God, or the first table, come to an end with an actual command. This first table of the Word of God, of this poem, covenant poem, come to an end with an actual command. There are two commands here. And this is the first one, and it is, remember the rest day to keep it holy. Deuteronomy gives a new reason, a different reason than Exodus, for observing 1 day a week for rest. Remember that you were slaves in misery, and I will be there, your God, brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, I will be there, your God, has taught you to observe the rest day. I remind you again that when we see the word holy, every time you see the word holy, remember this. We must think of the word holy's context in the holiness code in the book of Leviticus. Holiness is centered in you will love your neighbor as yourself. That's the center of holiness. So here, love of God is connected with love of neighbor. And that's throughout the Bible. Jesus connected them. When we Jesus taught us that they go together. And what we must concentrate on, according to Jesus, is love of neighbor, which we often neglect, claiming we are concentrating on love of God. Isn't it interesting that those who claim so loudly that they love God are often about hating some of their neighbors? The two go together. Love of God and love of neighbor is like love and freedom. You can't have one without the other. You can't. When you love your neighbor as yourself, you begin to know God and love God. It's not the other way around. Oh, I like a little poem from the 12th century. That was a long time ago. That was before me. The 12th century. But it was written by Martin of Tours, a monk. And here are the words. I sought my God I could not see. I sought my soul eluded me. I sought my neighbor, and I found all three. That's a poem worth memorizing. The Sabbath, or rest day, is a celebration of freedom, and freedom and love always go together. As the song goes, no love without freedom, no freedom without love. When you ask, and you should ask, what am I free for? What am I free for? You must also ask, how do I relate to the freedom of others? How do I relate to the freedom of my neighbor? Oh, I might add here the question, who is my neighbor? And Kierkegaard said some years ago, your neighbor is anyone you meet without exception. But I think today, in this world we live in today, your neighbor is anyone in the world without exception. Think of that in terms of you will love your neighbor as yourself. Now, next week I will talk with you about the second part of this covenant poem, which answers the question, how do I relate to the freedom of others? Or it begins to answer that question. In the meantime, I'm asking you to trust God who is present above you, beneath you, around you, and in you. And know that God who is present gives you freedom and love. Live in it. And I'm so glad my notes didn't blow away.